one of the challenging things about the illustrating the Sweethearts, which I didn't think about in the beginning, is that the Sweethearts, they're real people. They had names. There were some portraits, most often publicity portraits, where usually you saw the musician smiling at the camera. So I didn't have on hand many photographs or reference on them actually playing the instruments. Now they did have a short film that was made, so that was very helpful. So the challenge was to create portraits of musicians. By the way, these women were incredibly beautiful. Playing music, yet at the same time speaking to their beauty, their resilience, their grit in a way that came through in my art, but also to speak about the music itself. So the challenge was in creating image was, how do I speak to those two pieces? And actually there was layered with even more pieces, musicians. Recently I was in a jazz club in Columbia, South Carolina, and I was watching the musicians, and if you look at jazz or swing musicians, they play in a sense of cool style. But the music itself is something completely different. It's joyful, it's colorful. So that I had to find a way of also incorporating the energy and the color in music. And you notice in Sweethearts I've done something that I had not done before, and that's the use of collage. So all of those things meant for a very challenging work period on Sweethearts. The research was incredibly, I think, intense, and I actually worked with an assistant because of the fact that with 22 or some odd poems, each poem spoke about not only the musician, but the times. And we look at that time, 1935, 1945, and we look at what was going on. Jim Crow, World War II, the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl with World War II and Japanese internment camps. And on the other side, you had victory gardens and Rosie the Riveters, which, by the way, to me, I always thought of victory gardens in the context of white folks, or Rosie the Riveter was always was white. In my research, discovering that African Americans had victory gardens, that African Americans went to work in those factories as well, and so that in so many ways was also what I wanted to celebrate. I wanted to celebrate the Sweethearts. I wanted to celebrate the music, but I also wanted to celebrate the history and the legacy of African Americans during that turbulent time. Because in so many ways, even though there was Jim Crow, whites and blacks were living the same lives. They had the same hardships, same joys. And maybe that's still why the swing was so popular, because that was the democracy. Everyone danced. In the South, of course, there were whites could not play with blacks on the bandstand. That was also part of the, I guess, courageousness of the Sweethearts, because they integrated. First with a white musician, then an Asian American, a Native American, an Hawaiian. It's actually kind of amazing. So our jobs, Marilyn and mine, was to bring all this together in some kind of continuity or some kind of symmetry or some kind of thread that connected all of those things, and also, of course, spoke of the joy, in the music.